All right. Good evening and welcome to the March 9th meeting of the Select Board. If you would, please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Everyone can please make sure your phones are on silent. That would be greatly appreciated. We have no public hearings. We have no appointments, which leads us to our first public comment. Going once, twice, three times. All right. Staff reports.
Terrific. Most items are on the agenda. Just a couple of things extra for you tonight. First, the town reports are available. Hopefully all the select board members have stopped through to pick one up. For anybody here, we have some over on the radiator. Help yourself. For anybody watching at home, they're at the library, at the town hall, and other establishments around town. It's also an electronic copy is available at barrington.nh.gov/2019 town report. And again, special thanks to Tiffany for getting that done ahead of time, so folks have had them for almost 2 full weeks before the town meeting vote, the electronic copy. So a nice resource for voters. Also, the last page of your packet is a list of up-to-date appointments. So at the March 23rd meeting, the next meeting, I will be asking the board to consider those appointments. The purpose of the exercise, providing that list to you ahead of time, is if there's anything on that list that you want to discuss further, tonight would be the night to do it, either now or non-public if necessary, and being prepared to make those appointments. Typically, we have appointments to boards, commissions, and committees expire the end of March, so that an incoming board can make those appointments at the first meeting after the election. So please be prepared to do that. And if you have questions or concerns, either raise them tonight or in between before next meeting.
The only thing I have on it is, since we're talking about doing this with the new incoming board and we already know who the new member will likely be unless there's some wild writing campaign that happens at the last minute, are we providing that gentleman with this information so that he can come in prepared as well?
He'll have a copy of this packet, but I'll call it specifically to his attention to be prepared to make that decision his first meeting.
Mr. Ayer?
On the books, are they be available tomorrow? They can bring down handout or? Yeah, on town report.
They're always there.
Oh, at the election, yes. Yeah. Yes, we'll have a couple boxes of town reports at the election for folks, no question. Yep. Good question.
Tracy, did you have something you wanted to add?
The only thing I wanted to bring up in reading through all of this material is we talked about the select board goals, and the only thing I'm going to ask is when we do a reappointment at the meeting following this one, and we're all deciding on different committees, could we indicate when they most likely meet the night of the week?
Great question,
because
yes.
That becomes super important to some of us. Thank you.
No question. Yeah, and I have, this is what I'll use. I've been trying to keep it up to date in all boards meeting calendar, so a calendar which represents all of the boards, committees, and commissions that meet. So I'll make sure that's up to date and provide it hopefully later this week.
Great.
Other questions or comments about that? Terrific. So March work anniversaries, this is our first meeting in March. So Stephen Paul has been with the Highway Department for 20 years. He was presented with a plaque. Eric Lindsay, who just left for responsibility in Rochester, has been on the payroll in town for 19 years, or been in the system for 19 years. Peter Royce has volunteered for the town for a number of decades. Our records show that he pulled his first check 15 years ago. He's been treasurer for about 10 years. Amanda Barber is one of the police sergeants. She's been here for 4 years. And Melissa Hewitt, the library director, has been here for 2 years.
2 years already.
Time flies. So that is all I have. Everything else is covered throughout my report.
All right. I'm gonna back up because I forgot to do the review of minutes. So any amendments, changes to the minutes?
Motion to accept.
Second.
Roll
Here,
call.
I.
Bailey, aye.
Hardikoff, aye?
Nap aye. Old business, fire tanker recommendations. Hopefully everyone's had a chance to review the 2 bids that were submitted for the fire tanker. One thing that Connor and I had a discussion on, but I want to make sure is pointed out to the board, is that the option that is proposed by Rick, being option 3, does not include the price of the cabin chassis. So Rick, if you would come on up so you can.
And as Rick's approaching the podium, the 2 things we're asking for board support on, one would be to award option number 3 to Northeast, and the second item we're looking for board support on is to authorize an expenditure of up to $104,000 to purchase the truck directly from Freightliner. So I'll let Rick provide additional details.
So I apologize, I'm filling in for Assistant Chief Lindsay. He got called into the city of Rochester like 2 minutes before this started, but we put what we believe to be a pretty comprehensive option package together. One was, hey, you come take our truck up, bring us back a new one with the body change. That was option 1. Option 2 was the same work as above, but could we get any kind of a break if we paid for the truck ahead of time? Always just trying to look at ways to save money. Option 3 was if the town of Barrington purchased the truck, had it delivered to the vendor, and we, again, knowing that we had all the money put away, could we save money? And then the option 4 was just included some transportation stuff. So when we looked at everything, what made the most sense to us was to go with option 3, purchase the cabin chassis from Freightliner ourselves. Freightliner is not the state bid, but they treat municipalities very well. We were hoping to have the exact number for you today. And then looking at, by us owning the truck and sending it to the vendor, we anticipate saving anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000.
Comments from the board? Dan?
Where are the vendors?
One vendor is in Connecticut,
Which one's that?
that is Northeast, and Dingy is in Cornish Flats, New Hampshire.
Dan?
So I go auction and move a lot of equipment back and forth stuff. Connecticut is really a pain in the butt. It might be cheaper just to ship it down there, than truck it down there.
So we talked to Freightliner. When we talked to Freightliner today, if you folks approve that, us purchasing that option, we'll order the truck. It'll be shipped directly to Connecticut. It'll never make it to New Hampshire.
They'll save a lot of aggravation.
Right.
I'm satisfied with it.
The one thing I wanted to make sure to add, the option to keep, one of the options was for the cash value of the truck when they're done with it. The cash value for both bids was $1,500, and we don't have a permanent plan for that, but we know it's either worth more to us or we could sell it for more for sealed bid. So that option 3 includes having that truck delivered back to the town.
Do we know what it weighs? Do you know what the metal is worth?
Oh, that would certainly be an option as well. I don't know how much it weighs though.
In speaking to a few different people out on the street, including select person Air, we agreed that it makes the most sense for us. We asked for the actual cash value trade-in because in the interest of being transparent, we wanted to be able to tell the voters, should the highway department decide to make use of this truck, and that decision certainly has not been made at this point, that we wanted to be able to say to the voters that this is this is the value of the truck, which would be added to what the town may have invested in it to make the changes. So that's really why we asked for that, so that we would have a clear number. And both vendors came back at the same number, and as soon as we saw that number, and I spoke to Mark briefly about it, Mark said even if the highway department does not see a need to use the truck, it made sense to get back here and sell it for more money than that anyway.
Select person here.
Tracy, I appreciate your interest in scrap metal, but scrap metal is not worth anything. Time and stuff, you break it down, you can't make any money. And I feel that truck has a value. It's an older truck, takes the right person and stuff, but it's not all computers and stuff, so it's a good truck to sit around and stuff. When you need it, it's there. And I can feel the town would have first option of the best interest on it. If it goes out to bid, I would probably bid on it, and I'll pay you a lot more money than the trade-in value.
I can tell you today's steel price for BX or scrap steel is $65 a ton. That's as of this morning.
Well, I appreciate select person Air's commitment to pay a lot more money.
Maybe we'll hold it for that.
I like to go on record. I will go a lot more than what is offered. You put that in the minutes.
All right, any other questions?
No, I would make a motion to accept option number 3 and that the town purchase the Freightliner chassis directly, have it delivered to Northeast Fire, and that the current piece of equipment be returned to the town.
Up to a limit of 100 and...
So 2 separate motions if I could. So the very last paragraph on the first page, just because this money's coming from a capital reserve, so the exact amount needs to be listed.
Yes, sir, the
Thank
select board, okay. So the motion is to consider option 3 at $114,494,000 that is to be paid from the fire truck capital reserve account.
Terrific.
Motion 1.
Second,
Air I.
Bailey, aye.
Hardikoff, aye?
Nap aye. Motion 2.
Oh, motion 2, that the town have the chassis directly delivered to Northeast Fire, and that the current piece of equipment be returned to town ownership, not trade.
So in purchasing from Freightliner, up to $104,000 from the fire truck capital reserve.
Yes.
Terrific.
Second,
Air I.
Bailey, aye.
Hardikoff, aye?
Nap aye.
If I may, real quick, we appreciate you supporting our efforts. We're excited about the fact that we should be able to have a new tanker back in the station that will last us for many years to come for what I believe to be under $250,000, or actually under $225,000, and we're excited about that because we really thought that we were going to be up around $250,000, and a new truck, if we just flat out bought a new truck and traded, that would have been about $350,000. So thank you for supporting them.
Just one question, do you have any estimate of time when we'll come back?
Very good question. Freightliner told us today that we make the order, they need about 90 days, and as long as we get that 90-day time frame and give Northeast and Connecticut a rough idea of when that'll be, they're telling us 4 months to do the swap over, so I anticipate mid-fall.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We'll be able to spring water.
I'm sorry, I have one other question. So what is our game plan since we will be without a tanker in the interim?
Very good. We have already made efforts that we've moved our mutual aid pieces up, so if they come quicker than they normally would. We kind of bumped a few that were on the second alarm, bumped the first alarm, so we're getting them on the road sooner rather than later.
Okay, thank you.
The only thing I'll add, not to you, Rick, I just wanted to say special thanks to Rick and the truck committee and the fire department. They spent a lot of time, and Rick touted it a little bit, but the work that they put in, putting the options together and reviewing them, saved the town a fair deal of money. And so having people that care enough to consider the taxpayers' dollars and spending it so it goes the longest way is really valuable. So a lot of hard work went into that. Certainly appreciate the board's support.
recreation facility addition. Do you folks want to come up and talk about that?
Yeah, so I'll have Jessie Tennis, and for the first time at a select board meeting, our recreation director, Jessica Tennis.
Okay.
And so she'll give you a quick overview and update of the new information you have. And just for your benefit, what we're looking for tonight is support from the select board to move forward with this project, advertise a request for qualification for design build services for this project. So Jessie, when you're ready.
So within the packet that we provided, you will find the space assessment that was requested. We have an outline of the addition and what would be kind of encompassed in that addition. And we also provided the 3 cost analysis for that space. Based off of that cost analysis, it looks like we're looking at roughly anywhere from $125 to $190 per square foot for the addition. So basically, with that information, I just wanted to ask you guys if you guys had any questions. And like Connor said, we were really just looking for your guys' approval to move forward with advertising for the RFQ. So.
Dan?
Everything looked good to me. Just looking at this print, I don't know how it butts the building with the entries and stuff in and stuff.
Yeah.
But that tech review, fire and those regular go over it.
Yeah.
If it was buttoned up square, it doesn't look like it flows right to me. I don't know the size and if it is closing
Yeah.
off other doors.
Yeah. So we're still kind of in the beginning stages of looking at exactly how everything would be laid out. That is really just kind of an idea of what we would like to see within that space that we have. Obviously, we have to look at, building codes and things like that to make sure that everything would work. But that outline that we provided, basically on the left-hand side is that door. So if you're looking at the building on the right-hand side up against that concrete wall, that door would remain open that whole entire time. The other big entry would be encompassed in the entryway for that. So that entry would be included within the lobby area, but that right-hand side door would be open and it wouldn't be affected by the construction. So,
Yeah, that is my question, then they would flow.
yes, yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, of course.
So you're anticipating spending about $300,000 for this renovation?
Roughly, yeah, based off of that number. Yeah,
Based on your high number at 190 a square foot?
yeah, that's what we were roughly going on. Yeah.
Any other questions or comments from the board?
No, just the egress was answered, so I appreciate that.
I think that the outline of what you're doing with your space needs assessment was fairly comprehensive. Thank you for putting it all together so that there were not a number of questions.
Of course, yeah, no problem.
Select person there?
That building's not that energy efficient, so some things like a rise out of this that we might want to look into. I guess the boils are looked into already, but there's a lot of things that really are energy efficient on it. It might be this time to address it.
I'm assuming because we just have a general space layout,
Yeah.
that there would be probably an updated plan at a later point once you have everything figured out and something that pitches the water away from the entryway.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm just a visual person, so to have it on a piece of paper was super helpful. So obviously the logistics and the energy piece we would be looking at as we go throughout the project. But this was more just for you guys to see, really what we would be including in that addition. And it really seems to kind of solve some of that office issue that we have. So we're really just kind of looking at it from all aspects, but all of the fine details and things like that would definitely be, brought back up to your guys' attention before anything was confirmed. So, yeah.
And if I may, just 2 quick things. One, the benefit of a design-build approach for a project like this is to bring that same team in that's going to do the construction and design it. And so certainly we maintain transparency with the board and the community on those designs and the progress of those. To Select Person Ayer's point, our head is in the same exact spot with the energy efficiency, also the aesthetics of the front of that building, creating some consistency, making some improvements. The windows up above that are a hindrance inside and certainly not very energy efficient, taking this opportunity to make some of those improvements. And so some of those finer details will be hashed out once somebody is selected through the request for qualifications process.
Absolutely. Thank you, Connor.
Do you want a motion or a consensus?
motion would be great.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Air I.
Haley, aye.
Hardikoff, aye?
Nap aye.
Awesome, thank you guys very much, I appreciate it.
And not to keep like the thank you train going and everything, but again, this is something that has been in the works for a long time. A lot of effort from the Recreation Commission behind the Recreation Department. And obviously going through the motions of soliciting questions from the select board, providing answers. So I'm glad it was a quick meeting here, but a lot of work to get it to this point. And I'd like to take this first opportunity to introduce Barrington's next Assistant Recreation Director, accepted today, starting Monday, of Sarah Bailey.
Welcome.
So that's all the breaking news.
Alrighty.
Okay.
Moving on to the 2020 paving projects and the request for proposal. Mark, if you would,
Nobody wants to stay.
come on.
Thank you.
Steve. Yes. I love the stockings. I love the stockings.
I had to get back, I had to get interested in the gym.
We didn't have our
That's the
second
end.
meeting.
Paving
Thanks
projects.
again.
You should start next one like this one.
All right, paving season again.
Yippee.
Yeah. You all have my notes here. I basically measured everything and figured the tonnage, square yardage. The first block is basically protecting our investment from last year. Anything that was base coated, reclaimed and base coated last year is in that top block. Pretty much cut and dried. There's only one thing that we would be doing that I don't think has been done in the past. In the tonnage price, I'm going to have them figure to physically edge the driveway cuts, whereas previously, and it's kind of an accepted practice, but it's not a 100% proper practice. When you go by and you just swing the wing out on the paver and just, bleed the mix down into the driveways, give it a quick lick with a roller, and that's it. But it's not 100% correct. It's prone to being blown out. So these prices are figuring on edging those driveways in at every driveway cut and the road cuts. So that budget estimate, 321, 336. Corbett Road was a bit of a surprise. That hadn't been top coated since it was reclaimed in 2013. We wait much longer on that one. We're going to be into chopping it up again and starting over. I would say 3-4 years, you're going to be back to square one. It's going to take close to as much to shim it, bring it up to level, reprofile it, get the crown back, as it would be just to do the overlay on it in the first place. So it's a little rich, but it's nothing that you want to do in one pass on that road. That needs to be a double pass, no question. For $123,500. Commerce Way, there's not one piece of that existing road that's bigger than a silver dollar, but the road hasn't moved all that much. It's not floating around. So sub-base seems to be pretty good with the added stone from the reclaim process. It should make it even better. And on that one, to carry the weight of the trucks, I'm recommending to do the base one day and the top the next day. So, the surface stays clean overnight. It's probably still going to be semi-warm in the morning when they go to put the top coat on. That way you're going to have a 5-inch block of hot top there instantaneously with all that strength. Two little ones, Weeks Lane, Daniel Cater. We can do the prep work on those ourselves. It's no big deal, so we can save any reclaim or grading on that part. We'll do that ourselves. $6,200, no big deal. We really kind of need those so that our grader isn't backing out into heavy traffic to try to grade those roads. Oak Hill Road. we already talked about last year, the section at the top where the ledges are. That hasn't gotten any better. There's two other sections on that road which comprise the better part of 45% of the new part of that road from Much Ado out to Scruton's Pond Road. Three sections that really cannot be overlaid without doing some work to them. The one adjoining Scruton Pond, the 1,100-foot section, fairly easy. We can basically rototill 6 inches of stone into that existing pavement. We've got the grade to do it. The middle one, a little trickier, but not real bad. But the one we talked about last year that's blown up in the middle of the ledges, that's basically, we've got to get into the under drain situation under that and make sure that subbase is draining into the ditch lines. So this, the reclaim, stabilize, and repave for 47,535. That's not counting the work that the highway department has to do on the under drain and that portion.
Question, is that gonna require closing that road to
Yes.
get in there?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I've already, I don't really want to wait till, well, I'd rather not wait until school gets out because that's going to be mid-June.
Mhm.
Already kind of checked it out with George. Asked a neighbor on the downhill side if we could use his fairly substantial long driveway to turn the school buses around in just below the scope of work where we would be. And he agreed to that. He's fine with it. So there shouldn't be any problem as far as the school buses are concerned. But yes, it'll probably be closed solid for 2 to 3 days to let us do what we need to do. And also with Oak Hill Road, we still got that nagging little water problem down on the Franklin Pierce Highway side. We probably cured half of it this winter with work we did last fall. There wasn't nearly as much water running down there as there had been in the past, but it's still there to some extent. And then we've got Malago Road. The majority of Malago is, it's an engineering job from a drainage standpoint, but there's a 12 to 1,300 foot section at the southernmost entrance of Stone Farm Drive that we've got enough elevation there to do all the ditch line work with very little hassle. A couple of driveways are going to need some culverts. One driveway on the very corner has got a culvert that's pitched the wrong way, impeding the water coming down that side to the bridge. We would have a chance to raise the road a little bit, super elevate that turn where the pasture road goes off. Super elevating means basically it's a bank turn, so it's to keep the vehicles from flying off the road. Kind of controls the centrifugal force. If you kept a 3% crown in a road going around the corner, the outside car would have a tendency to fall off the road. So you raise that side. It was the raising of that road would allow us to get up out of the water a little bit more. Again, that would be a 6 inches of stone type thing, reclaimed into the existing subbase. So that ends up 85,000 for the reclaim, stabilize, and repave. And again, highway department's going to have to take care of the drainage part of it and a few culverts here and there.
So this is all from Stone Farm to the bridge, essentially?
Yes, the southernmost entrance, so the entrance closest to 125
Yep.
to the bridge.
And then I'm assuming when you talked about some of it needing real engineering work, you're talking from Stone Farm heading up toward 125?
Towards 125, yeah.
Yeah.
It's all flat in there and no place for the water to go. This has got enough elevation. It really lends itself to really, not too complicated ditching, to get the water out of the road, down the side of the road as quickly as possible. We do have an issue there with the snowmobiles coming out of the gravel pit, crossing the road near the top, in between the two Stone Farm entrances. They cross the road and end up riding down that ditch line, turning that ditch line to a solid block of ice. And if you go by there, you'll see it's the worst, one of the worst parts of the whole road, where the water backs up under that sub-basin. It's got no place to go. I don't know at this point how we would cure the snowmobile situation. Make that ditch line so that it's impossible for them to ride in it somehow.
Dan?
I'm not an engineer, but every action's a reaction. And I'm not putting down snowmobiles, they're gonna still do it. But if we go by and get a good crown to it, and we cut into someone else, so in that short amount of time that they got to pack, that water will bypass getting the trench line on the other side. They kind of get out, when you super elevate it,
Yeah.
I think for a short period of time when it's solid ice, they'll go by across, it's not a right way to do it, so the water will pass by someone else's farm, then get in the trench line.
Yeah, yeah, potential.
But that's observations of.
Yeah, yeah.
And then too, there's a lot of things that we inherited, this rock walls, people put on their property line and stuff. They're allowed to do it, but it hinders the flow of water and stuff. Malago's got one on it, Maplewood Ave has some water problems and stuff, but people are blocking them. But we're responsible in the right of way. And it's up, it goes on there, we don't want to hinder it, but we still got to make our up work. And if your yard wasn't graded right, or you set your foundation too long, I feel sorry for you, but you gotta deal with that right away, affect our investments. You'll see around, we handle a lot of issues.
And that's a really good point, Dan, and you know, when we talk about the other part of Malago Road that is so flat, will need some engineering. The end game of that is we do have to find a place for water to go, and the town will likely be approaching property owners with drainage easement requests in order to get water off the towns, out of the towns right away. Water flows downhill, but if we don't have a cross culvert in place and we're gonna start directing water, we need drainage easements. If we're gonna direct water out of a ditch line and to a lower point that is on somebody's private property, we would need to pursue a drainage easement. And Mark and I came to a very quick conclusion that that isn't something we're gonna do based on Mark's assessment or anybody down at the highway department's assessment of where water needs to go. That's something that we're engaging the services of an engineer to develop the most productive solution to the drainage issues there, approaching the property owners with the request for drainage easements. Not dissimilar to approaching the abutters of a bridge project requesting easements. It's not necessarily the case that these easements would be very impactful to the property owner, but it's still not something we can legally do without pursuing that path. So it's a good point you made, Dan.
Tracy?
I'm gonna go completely, well, not completely off topic, but a little bit off. The Malago Bridge has a number of green barriers on either side that were placed there when the bridge was,
Silk socks.
how long do those stay there?
I would imagine they would be coming out sometime soon after the spring runoff, I would imagine.
Okay.
Don't know for sure, but I can find out.
Okay. I was just curious.
At least a year till everything stabilizes up.
So October then.
Yeah. The state wants you there at least a year.
Oh.
And what they'll do is, they'll probably come take a knife and cut it, and then pull up, that out, leave the backbone there.
Gotcha.
Because that's at least 14 pounds a foot.
Dry.
Right. Oh, interesting. Thank you.
Can I make comments on the pavement?
Go ahead, Dan.
All right. I'm not worthy, I made a mistake. Your information, I brought to the town lands committee, all of it, I was reviewing it, I shuffled in there. Then I went to your paving thing, and I didn't see all this. And I did a rough estimate too, for my own personal use. And we're within budget, I believe. I went low, and I had a little factor. And it looks like fuel's going down because of this virus.
Well,
But,
up until today,
so, but this,
seen the stock market today.
but the,
Well, fuel's dropping based
It's in-
on what's happening in the oil markets right now.
Yeah.
so,
Russia,
in the past,
they were in a fight.
I thought about this and stuff, and I made 6 observations last year on paving. You address a lot of them and stuff, but we need to dot our whole I's, so it's apples for apples. And I like to see the list and then a rough measurement on your guesstimation and stuff, and let everyone measure it and stuff. So they're all bidding apples for apples in the area. So let's see on shims and overlays, someone who looks at a good part of the road, and they bid it low in the shim, it's not gonna be apples for apples.
Yeah.
So if we just do a rough mark, and then at the end of the job, people measure it, so they have a rough idea what section they're doing,
Yeah.
so they don't physically go over there with you.
So you want me to, basically, do you want me to do my estimate of tons or my estimate of highway yards?
No, you just do, well, you figure that, your estimate, just put a mark on the pavement, they measure it, they come up with a price, so it'll be apples for apples.
Yeah.
And they come close to your tonnage, you don't tell them your tonnage,
Right.
see what they come up with. But
Right.
all the bids would be apples for apples.
Right, right. Well, yeah, what I don't wanna give them is a target to shoot for.
Right.
Right,
So, you know,
but if you put a line on there, and if you're within reason, when they come in with a reason, at the end of the day, you look at slips, and you roughly know how many tons are in there,
Right.
you get the tons, it's done, checks and balance, done.
Yeah.
If there's a big difference,
Right.
then you can look into it. It just protects us. And then, on the reclaim, I ran a reclaim over 2.5 years. And I did 38 miles of road, 20 feet wide. At 6 to 8 feet a minute. But when we reclaims, we left windrows on side of on there, and then I physically had to go cut and put all the driveways and the mill downs, so we didn't block anyone's driveway. When they came in with the paver, paved it, we went back and knocked it down. We could ask people to figure that in, or the highway can figure it in to do it. And then, we already got the shovel gravel there, we don't have to buy extra. So we're saving money. There's still a cost if you want to take it on, or you want to specify that. And then, I love having the crown right there. The last year, well, my observation, a lot of the roads, they didn't have the crown and stuff, and they said they did the requirements. There really was no requirements, so of course they did it. And then, on the introducing the stone,
Yeah.
maybe separate that in twice, because one shot deal, just put it on top of the pavement, blend it all in the thing, and then spec out 12 inches spec. There was no spec on the depth before, this full depth.
Right.
So the guys in the reclaims go any depth they wanted.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you want to separate, because we could separate that, because we might grind a road, and bring all kinds of fine stuff, no stone at all, and these, we better put something to that. We're gonna end up paying twice for it, to blend it,
Right,
but we know that.
right.
So you don't have to make, but you know a road that's really bad, that you need reclamation on, we just go over that, one shot deal.
Right, right, and that's the way that this was figured.
But then when I read the option, that's the problem we had on Lock Hill last year,
Right.
we paid for the grinding twice, the
Correct.
blending and everything. So if we could, this is my feeling, I don't know what the board feels, but if we could clean that up, so if any question comes up, it's all right there.
Right. Yeah, any of the reclaim, I don't think there's one that's, any of the reclaim that needs the stone, we're planning on just spreading the stone on top of the existing asphalt and
But if you read
blending it in.
the optional, we should, on the optional bid, have it bid twice. A one-shot deal or over around there, so we can clarify that. Because we ended up paying twice last year, we inspect it out. That, they think it wasn't part of the price.
Correct.
And they went by the yard, not square foot and stuff, and then handwork. If you go up Walk Hill, maybe you should add handwork too. On, for the tie-ins of the drivers and more, I don't know if that's in here, they usually spec in some handwork.
Yeah.
1 second. Go ahead, carry on with your
And then,
piece here.
what you're talking about on driveways, they call it tip down. They just bring the asphalt by it and just take a compact and tip down. So it's not tying in anything. You touch it and the movement of the pavement, it pops up.
Right.
And I concur with that. But basically, that's all I saw. So I didn't, then after I made my mistake and realized it and apologized to higher Ian's, I looked at it, then I went over your estimate. So it's kind of good. I looked at it just as a,
Yeah.
someone. That's the only thing I saw.
That was only temporary.
Tracy, what would you like to add?
So, first of all, Dan, I absolutely respect that this is your area of expertise, and I appreciate what you do know. I just have one question. If we get that detailed in the RFP, what are the chances that companies just won't bid? And that's a concern of mine.
Yeah.
I use as an example, and this is why I know this is your area of expertise. When we were doing the comp study, we had to be careful that what we were asking for was specific, but not so specific that we ended up with a $50,000 price tag. So I don't know, because it's not my area of expertise, where that sweet spot is to ask for the details, but to not push off a potential bid.
Well, all I'm saying in the past, I'm looking at bids and stuff. Someone came in cheaper on the tonnage, but I'm looking at the work and stuff, it wasn't cheaper. So, but somehow I would like to see apples for apples. And then if we just put a rough line area to area, especially on shim jobs, you gotta guess me on how many tonnage is there on shimming it. So, at the end of the day, everyone's looking at the same area, they should be within reason.
So if there's 13 or 16 roads, I didn't count them, and one company says, I expect to utilize this much, but another company says, I expect to utilize this much, and the bid comes in with those respective amounts in there, I assume that Mark already has an idea in his head of what the total amount should be, so he would know whether the response was a valid bid.
But
Am I
all-
wrong in saying, I mean, again, not my area of expertise, not my wheelhouse, but doesn't that make sense when I look at it that way? That if you have a bid that comes back from company A for, 1,000 tons,
Right.
and you have a bid that comes back from company B for 1,500,
Right.
and you have one that comes from company C for 2,000, and you estimate that we should be at the 2,000, do you then kind of know which one is a very valid response to what you actually need done?
At that point, I would go out and recheck my measurements,
Okay,
just to make sure that I'm not the one that's messed up,
okay,
and go from there.
okay.
So one
But
thing
I,
that we,
but I guess that's what I was wondering is, if they're bidding and they're telling us what the total amount they expect to use for materials for the projects are, and we've defined the projects, why do we need it broken down more?
so one problem we have had in the past is, when we put it out, somebody may come in cheaper, but they might not go as wide on the road.
Oh,
So they don't end up coming up with the same tonnage because of that.
okay,
And then what happens is at the end, people get a little upset saying, well, you didn't, that's not what you spec'd, or this is what you showed me, and
do we have the width of the road in the specs?
Yes.
so.
Well, they vary.
Right.
They're not all the same. Some are 22, some are 24.
But have you listed that?
I have them broken out, not necessarily on this paperwork.
Right, this is where, what Dan's saying is by putting a mark on the road on one side and a mark on the road on the other, and they all measure the same mark and come up with their tonnage, and Mark already has that tonnage.
Okay, how labor intensive would that be?
They do it anyway.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. I just don't want to dissuade anyone from putting in a bid.
I don't think that's
You don't think it will
Usually the
happen?
case, no, we almost always have at least 3 bidders.
And my reasoning for them, requiring them, the contractors, to measure the road is, I don't want to stick either a square yard figure in there or a tonnage figure in there, again, to give them a target to shoot for.
Ah, okay,
I'm trying to avoid giving them a number.
understood.
The only thing I'll add, if I may, we are very fortunate to have Mark with his decades of experience in this industry, not only from the developing a request and the details of a request for proposals from things he's seen or knows to look for in his time, but even more so when we get a contractor out in the field, Mark will be able to be there, check the tonnage slips, understand everything, and protect the town's interests very well. So I have a high level of confidence in Mark's ability to manage this project start to finish.
Great.
Select person there.
And then two, technically, we're supposed to get state permits. But
They're on the way.
It's already on it.
good.
Okay.
The only thing I want to say is that I think this year we're going to see a better product and a better craftsmanship all the way around. So I think we're going to be on the good side this year. And hopefully the people on the other side that put us here will see that.
I believe our interim road agent did a spectacular job filling in for us last year.
So we're all set.
Select person there.
All right, this is my thought, this is my feelings. And the ex-intern agreed with me. If someone, on a culverts and stuff, if someone did get a driveway permit, they install the culvert, they accept it. When we come up to it, if all the proper channels are done, I think we own it. And we need to protect our investment, and we spend the money replacing it. And so,
That's what Mark's talking about on Malago. Not only will we be replacing some driveway culverts on Malago, but we'll likely be putting a couple in that don't have them now. And the town will be paying to do that and working with the property owner to get it done.
right, but I'm not saying, if someone went out there and never did it and stuff, if out there, as long as someone through the procedures right, but we could argue with that later on, but I think it's worth spending the investment dealing with the water out of its ruined pavement.
So I propose that Mark will take some of the feedback, build it into the RFP and get it advertised. Is there other feedback the board would like to see in the RFP that we haven't already discussed?
Dan?
And the way the weather's going, stuff drying up and stuff, we might want to get earlier start on stuff. Last year was wet, it went the wrong way. Some of these roads are re-drying up, and the way the construction's going this year, everyone I've talked to, they got a lot of big projects and they're busy this summer. So we can't really push people off to the middle of summer. If some of the stuff can be done early, we should do it early. Because everyone's gonna be busy this year.
Yeah, the overlays can be done as soon as it's warm enough to do it right. Another thing I am gonna be riding hard on these guys with is, the temperature of the air when they're making the second pass, to get rid of those mile-high piled center joints that we've been seeing around town here lately that absolutely drive me insane. There's no need of it, you know, and if your weather's right, you can get away with just trying to overlap with the machine, but if it's cold, the joints have to be raked. They have to be raked by hand, and nobody seems to want to hand loot these joints anymore. They're gonna be doing it now.
Good. So do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Roll call vote.
Air aye.
Bailey, aye.
Hardikoff, aye?
Nap aye. Alrighty.
You'll be surprised to know a lot of work went into this. Special thanks to everybody that got us here.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks a lot. Thank you for having the paving bids, requests to us.
So, early.
Unfortunately, the weather is what it is, but normally right now you would be still plowing snow.
Oh, yeah.
So, thank you.
Still good, it's coming back.
I hope so.
It ain't over yet.
I'm not done with ski season yet. 2019 goals and budget analysis. Connor, if you would like to
Okay,
take
so
charge.
I don't want to belabor this meeting, but I do want to take a minute and just hit over the highlights of this. I know the board has a full copy and has reviewed it, but for the benefit of those watching at home and for the board's benefit. So I think it's a very important exercise the select board goes through setting goals. You know, it's one thing to go through the budget process, but it's another thing to take that budget and set goals to implement that budget towards. And so in May of 2019, the board set the 3 goals. Partway through the year, I provided an update and updated the budget, and so this is the end of the year and where we are. And so the goals, number 1 was to complete long-term space needs plans for town facilities. Number 2 was to work with the technology committee to make town operations more efficient by utilizing technology. Goal number 3 was to review and recommend changes on the personnel policies. So big picture, you know, 10,000 foot level on the library. Obviously that's up for vote tomorrow. The select board has been very supportive through that process, offering feedback and helping to make sure that the process has been transparent for voters. Recreation, obviously a big accomplishment tonight with work going towards increasing the space and utilization for the space and recreation. The town hall is in the final stages of design development, will be constructed this year. The police department in 2019 completed an approximately $80,000 renovation project based on the results of the lean process, and they're already working from the results of that lean process to start the 3 to 5 year plan for a facility for more permanent facility needs in that department. In the fire department, minor renovations were made upstairs, and the long-term fire department plan will depend in part on what is done for a long-term plan in the police department. Public Works, on the transfer station side, the select board created the transfer station and recycling center review committee to make sure that any changes that are, or investments that happen down there are done in a thoughtful manner. And we'll continue to work with the road agent for long-term plans for the highway facility. On the IT side, in January, we implemented the Office 365 phone system, which will save the town approximately $30,000 a year. The select board has supported recommendations from the technology committee and the IT services provider for some comprehensive network infrastructure improvements that have increased connectivity, security, and reliability. The technology committee also advised the select board to work with Rockport Technologies with the town hall project to make sure that the town's interests were protected from a technology standpoint. Finally, the select board stayed true to their commitment in April to pursue a compensation study. The results of that compensation study were supported by the select board in January. Which was an important first step to a full review of the personnel plan, so that evaluation of total rewards, both wages and benefits, and making the necessary adjustments allows us to go through the personnel plan with the big pieces addressed and make the necessary updates throughout that. So those are the goals, and the next agenda item is to start thinking about goals for 2020. Obviously, there are a couple of items that don't have a complete bookend, which would be important to consider for developing goals for 2020. Going into the budget a little more quickly, so the budget for 2019 was $7,124,000. On page 5, you'll see that the unaudited budget utilization was 97%, which returned $241,000, 3% of the budget, to unassigned fund balance. In comparison to 2018, budget utilization was 94%. Page 6 shows the 2019 budget compared to 2019 expenditures by department, and the table below shows the utilization that was over 100%. And I broke those departments that expended over 100% to provide some additional information for that budget utilization. So on page 7, Financial administration was overspent. It was 101% of the budget, not dramatically overspent. And those costs were associated with further implementation of Office 365, that some of those contracted costs were not budgeted. We started those costs in September, so that contributed to an overrun. Personnel administration, the percentage is high at 162,000. In reality, this was about $12,000. But the end of service line, typically a difficult line to budget for. Moving into the 2021 budget process, I'll be working with the board to consider developing a capital reserve account for those end of service expenditures to set some money aside, so it's not a budgetary expense. It's something that we don't see the spikes and falls in the budget for. General government buildings, this is a large budget line, so 102% is, 2% overspent, but quite a few dollars. And that was contributed to by being 107% on the electric line, 117% on heating fuel, and 128% on vehicle fuel. And all of the necessary adjustments have been made for the 2020 budget. Finally, roadways and walkways was overspent at 106%. And so the two major contributors there is the vehicle maintenance line was utilized at 147%. You'll remember from the budget process, this is one of those line items that we approached the board to increase appropriately to make the proper investments in our equipment. So those necessary changes have been made. And 128% for operating supplies, the salt and the sand. So one of the biggest contributors was the timing of the purchases, having more in 2019 than the year before or anticipated in the year after. But also the road agent does not anticipate the need to purchase sand in 2020. What we purchased in 2019 will carry us over. So that budget didn't change, but we don't anticipate running into the same situation in the future. Moving on to revenue, it's important to keep in mind, in 2019 our budget was $7.1 million, but we collected $3.7 million in non-property tax revenue. So over half of the revenue the town collects, over half of the operating budget is comprised of non-property tax related revenue. So I have made every effort to be more transparent through the revenue estimating process throughout the year. It is an important thing, especially around tax rate setting. So you'll see that we always want to collect more revenue than we estimate. It's important to estimate revenue, even if it's ever so slightly, so we don't end up with an additional tax burden. In 2019, revenue was collected at 105% of the estimate, which contributed approximately $183,000 to the unassigned fund balance. So the 2018 numbers are provided as well. On page 9, you'll see the categories, the New Hampshire Department of Revenue Administration categories for revenue, our estimates, and what we collected. You'll notice that we over-collected or we collected in excess of the estimations, mostly in charges for service and miscellaneous revenue. Miscellaneous revenue, the biggest contributor to that underestimation was how many property owners that had their property tax deeded came back and bought it back in full, paid all of the back due taxes, fines and interest. So that contributed to more revenue than anticipated in that revenue line. Finally, on page 10 just shows the 2018 totals for comparison. So, talking about those tax deeded properties, if you look at miscellaneous revenue in 2018, the total collected was $98,000. In 2019, it was $398,000. So a pretty significant increase because of that. So thank you for allowing me the opportunity to go through that. I'd be happy to answer any questions or concerns.
General comments?
Well, thank you for all the work you did when you answered the question on miscellaneous. I appreciate that.
And then, again, tying back to earlier comment, just making sure any new select board members have a copy of this so they're prepared to have a conversation around goals and objectives for 2020.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Select Person Hardikoff.
May I add something to discuss into new business?
How does the board feel about that?
I'm in favor of it.
It's just, I mean, it's agenda item. Yes, if I need him here for the donations.
Yeah, that's fine, we can add something under our business.
I'm wondering if.
We're not in new business.
Oh,
yet.
sorry.
Hold
I
on.
thought we were.
Hold on.
Go ahead.
Alright, so 2020 goals and developments, everybody will be prepared to start having that conversation on the 23rd.
So my goal is to have the conversation at, on the meeting of the 23rd and set the meeting, set the goals, finalize the goals at the first meeting in April. So I definitely, if there's things you have in mind, you don't have to wait till the 23rd to bring them to my attention or to the chair's attention. And I can start developing them into written goals. Like I said, I'll start from the unfinished business from 2019. But if you have things that you'd like to be focusing the board's time and attention on, be thinking about that and prepared to get that on the books.
Alrighty. Moving into new business. Select person Hardikoff.
So the one thing I wanted to bring up, and I realize that this is a state road, but there's a new business in town and it has a Burger King, a gas station, what have you. Outside of that business is 12 to 14 signs and banners. And I have to be very honest, I know that we have permanent sign permits, and I am not in any way trying to distract from that business building up their customer base, but it is so distracting as you turn that corner right now. There's hey, financing by, built by, if you're a diesel truck, hey, pull around the back, we've got that. There's the welcome, there's the opening, there's the Burger King. There's just banners all over the front of the business, and some of them are signs, and they're temporary signs, and some of them are banners, and I was hoping we could politely ask them to maybe begin to, reduce them by, one every 2 weeks or something until we have a succinct, beautiful sign out front that says what their business is. What are the rest of the select board's thoughts on this?
Select person there.
Well, it's a state
I've said that.
controlled access,
Mhm.
so I don't know what we can do. We enforce our thing 30 days, I think it is, for temporary signs. But if it really gets, you can of worms, because the state's gonna come in here, they're gonna take everything out. The whole.
I don't want to take it.
I can go have a conversation with them. I've talked to them in the past when they set up. They did mention having a few extra of those temporary signs to try to, when they had their opening, like they had the lower gas prices and stuff. And they do want to be part of our community, so I can go have a discussion with them, and I think I can get them to change some of this stuff and start throwing it back.
And I don't mean instantly, but like, if they can take down the financing sign 1 month and then take down who
Well,
built it the next month.
their construction signs haven't come down yet, and I'm sure they're more than willing to take those out right off. I'm sure that I can get probably accomplished relatively
And
quick.
then, I mean, quite frankly, we had a beautiful tree line on 125, and I think part of what Barringtonites really enjoy about their town is that rural feel, and it's a little circusy looking, in my humble opinion, so I was hoping maybe just slowly over time we could reduce
What
this.
corner are you talking about?
I'm talking about as I turn from Caleb's
Have you
Country
looked to the
Store to
left
turn
lately?
left. Anyway,
Alright,
Wednesday that'll be taken care of, Dan.
police donations.
And I apologize because it wasn't on the agenda, but I do, it was in the report, just as an item I wanted to share. Still thinking ahead to the March 23rd meeting. Just want to make sure the board was aware, that meeting on March 23rd will start with board organization, which would be the selection of a chair and a vice chair. And after that meeting, the new chair, if there's a new chair, Andy, if he's still chair, will be responsible for making appointments for board liaison to the various boards and commissions and committees. And so I've provided the list of most committees, commissions exist right now, so if you are interested in a change or anything, it's on page 3, moving on to page 4 in my report.
I am.
Then be prepared to let the new chair know once he's selected, and
Or she.
he or she was selected. Did I say he?
You did.
Oh gosh, I'm sorry.
I just want you both to know that my heart is really happy that at least we are moving forward with that. Thank you.
Full apologies. It was a silent S, I
Is that-
apologize.
Mr. Chairman, is that she, he, or he, she?
Chairperson.
So
Chairperson, so I asked the chairperson, how is that supposed to go?
It's
I am-
coming up today, though.
anticipate April 13th that those decisions will be made. And as discussed earlier, I'll send out the all boards meeting calendar so the select board can consider those meeting dates in their decision. And I will share that if elected, Jim Sakosha, the new select board member, has an interest in the Recreation Commission.
Oh.
I thought Mr. Air had he had,
Well, they can take that up with the chair.
So-
I have no stand and I have no kids, nothing, so I am neutral. I am a desperate for it.
You're so neutral,
You can
Dan.
lobby the next chair,
You're so
whoever he or
neutral,
she
you're
may be.
beige, Dan, you're just neutral. Could we have both, can we just have a simple column that says the name of the committee or board, the night of the week that they typically meet, and then the number of times per year that they meet?
No.
No, seriously, because I've really gotten off the hook. Like, I shared with Dawn every other school board, and then rec takes place on Mondays, so it's very hard to attend, so I just think in
I'll go
fairness,
You could add the planning board and get 2 more meetings a month.
you can add 2 more per month.
You can become a planning board member. and get 2
Yes.
more
well, the RSA recommends the new person to give the job because he'll be here for 3 years. That's what the RSA recommends.
So so if we could do that, that would be helpful, because then we can divvy up the responsibility more equally.
I'll try to get that out this week.
The one thing I cannot do is Tuesday nights. Who meets on Tuesday nights?
Oh!
Planning board.
Right.
Oh.
Don't do that.
Yeah,
I can't do Tuesday
Playing
nights.
coy over there.
My
I'm
board
just-
and all my presentations generally. I'm
I
not
believe
kidding
you.
about this.
Give me-
Unless you want me to constantly say, I'm sorry I had to miss that, I had another board
Oh, you
meeting.
just
No,
make
I'm sorry I
proof
had to miss that.
You just bring proof in.
And what?
You just bring proof in, we'll
Right.
accept it.
Right, ready
Yeah,
for business
let's
then.
move on to the
Good
police
Lord.
donations that I was so
Yes.
joyously trying to get going.
Thank you. Moving right along. So the police department is considering, is encouraging the board to accept two donations. The first, you'll remember about this time last year, Rob Russell of 2A Tactical, a former Dover police officer and a fully disabled vet, is interested in donating 2 more patrol carbines to the town, approximate value of $5,500. And this year, in addition to the rifles, he'll be donating a thermal imager. The chief recommends the board accept this donation, so the board is asked to consider offering thanks and accepting the gift. Mr. Russell was going to be here tonight, but has prior engagements. You remember he was here last year.
George?
so that means we're gonna give him a letter of $5,500 in the form of a tax.
If requested.
Thank you.
Any other comments from your board on it? Hearing none?
Are we gonna wait till next meeting to accept it, or we're gonna accept it tonight?
Well, we need to make a determination if we want to accept it and make a vote on it. I see no reason that I would not be willing to accept it.
I'll make a motion first to waive anything, because it was, we had the information, but wasn't on the agenda. Can we waive it? Do we need to waive anything?
No, it's on the agenda.
Is it?
Police donations? Yes.
It's in his report.
On page 4,
I thought you said earlier, I know we had the information, but
No, he was referring to the boards that are up for grabs, so
All right.
in his report. but
I'll
not
make the
on
motion
agenda.
to accept. And give a tax credit if needed. Whatever.
Second.
Roll call vote?
Let's go air aye.
Bailey, aye.
Article 5.
Nap aye.
the next, a resident has donated and is not in service yet, an optic for a rifle with a value of less than $300. The resident noticed the rifle without an optic and offered the personal surplus equipment to the police department. The select board's policy on accepting gifts is that all gifts, regardless of the size, must be accepted by the select board. So this is also up for board's consideration to consider offering thanks and accepting the gift.
So moved.
Second.
Air I.
Bailey, aye.
Hardikoff, aye.
Nap aye. Police union sidebar agreement.
So at the January 27th meeting, as we discussed earlier, the select board voted to support the recommendations of the compensation study. As you remember, changes to the union require mutual agreement of the union. The select board supported making the attached proposal to the police union for their consideration. After discussions with the union and their representation, the union has agreed to the terms of the sidebar agreement that is attached. If you have it in front of you, the main points are instituting the earned time accrual schedule as proposed by the compensation study, having employees continue earning at their current rate, but new employees and all employees be subject to the new schedule. The other important note is on the wages. On the second page of the agreement indicates the new wage scale for the police union based on the wage scale of recommended through the compensation study. So it was important through the process, and I know to the select board, to make sure as we enter negotiations with the police union for starting in 2021, that the changes made through this process aren't renegotiated at that point and either negated or reversed back to how they were. So what this contract does, what this sidebar agreement does, is takes the earned time and the wages piece off the table for consideration for the next agreement, which I think will make it easier for the parties to work through the next negotiation. And the language of this agreement says that that they would be off the table for the term of the next agreement. So during the term of the successor agreement. So again, I think that's an important part of this agreement to have in there. I want to make sure the board is aware. So I'd be looking for a motion to accept this agreement and have it signed. It's already signed by the union.
So motion to approve the police union sidebar agreement
And amended collective bargaining.
and the amended collective bargaining agreement. I'm trying to find what, you've got 200305 listed. Am I supposed to reference that?
So that's my date code,
Oh.
March
Okay.
5th, 2020.
So, yeah, other than that, between the town of Barrington and the police union, any PBA local 240.
Terrific.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Air I.
Bailey, aye.
Hardikoff, aye.
Nap aye.
As you'll know, the changes as agreed to here and for the compensation study in general are still contingent on the passage of the town's proposed operating budget tomorrow.
Check.
The writing off of bad debt from Global Energy Solutions. Hopefully everyone has reviewed the note from Amy Doherty on this, that apparently there was from outside detail services dating 12/26 through 12/28 and on 1/4 of 2019. The total of the invoice is $1,916.50. And if we were interested in collecting it, there was, apparently were required to provide a written response before July 9th of 2019. And in addition to attending a hearing located in Alexandria, Virginia, which we didn't do.
What did we provide? Outside detail services?
Police
detail.
Oh, okay.
Traffic.
They were a subcontractor for utility installation.
Okay. So motion to write off the bad debt between Global Energy Solutions and the town of Barrington, the amount of $1,916.50.
Second it.
Air I.
Question?
Yep.
This in no way, I hope, will affect the officer that performed that service.
Correct.
No,
Okay,
there.
Bailey, aye. Thank you.
Hardikoff, aye.
Nap aye. Barrington Medical Service and coronavirus.
Yeah, so I'll invite, oh, Chief Walker's not here.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's that.
So, I just think it's important for the board and the community to know that town officials are following all the guidance from federal, state, and regional health organizations regarding the COVID-19 coronavirus. So, that includes taking necessary precautions for employees that interact with the public, encouraging and providing signage for hand washing. The fire chief will be available at voting tomorrow. He'll bring gloves for any employees that are interested in using them, and we'll have disinfectant materials as well. So the general feeling from the federal, state, and regional health organizations is that while it's not a crisis concern, the more we can do to stay clean and wash our hands and keep ourselves healthy is important. And so an opportunity to remind folks to wash their hands, cover their mouth, and limit human contact is important.
Carry extra toilet paper.
Go ahead, Tracy.
So if we could remind the people working at the polls too, that they don't necessarily have to take the IDs from the individuals, they can look at them while the individuals hold them. They've got enough to do there that day, but I think that it would potentially reduce their risk of any type of germs if they were not necessarily handling the IDs, and reminding them to wash their hands would be great. I personally felt like we should take some time, if the booth is empty, to wipe down the pen.
Select person daily.
Yeah, I think we just, as we said earlier, make sure the gloves are available for those that might want to wear them anyway. Thank you.
Select person air.
How about baby wipes? Is that enough to affect anything?
No.
I don't know about anybody else, but I realize the more you talk about not touching your face, the more I want to rub my face.
Okay, moving on to town deposits and banking review. Are we
Yes.
going over that at the next meeting or this one?
Right now.
Okay.
So nothing the board needs to act on. I just want to make sure the board is aware. This is something we actually did last fall and has been on my list of things to make sure the board was aware of. So the town has options on where we bank, and more specifically, it's the treasurer's decision. And so in the fall of last year, we went through the motions to review our options. We met with banks, we reviewed their offers, we saw demonstrations of the services that they could provide electronically and in person. And in the conclusion of the process was that we didn't change a banking institution. We're continuing to bank with TD Bank, but under better terms, and the process contributed to those better terms. So we're receiving approximately 18% more per month in interest. In the month of January alone, that's $2,600, almost $2,700. And so we are able to do that by negotiating a larger investable balance and a commitment to earn at the high end of the Federal Reserve interest rate range, which is what they use for their interest earnings. So that's the biggest benefit that we derived out of that. Before, they essentially took about $2.5 million from our balance and held that aside that we didn't collect interest on. Now we're collecting interest on all of it. And so we'll continue to see more from that. Of course, as the Fed drops interest rates, our earnings will be, reduced, but we have, at a peak, we have between 13 and $15 million on deposit. So the more we can earn on interest than that is better. The second thing, certainly smaller but very valuable, is they waive the implementation costs and maintenance costs of Positive Pay, which if you're not familiar with it, it verifies all the checks written and ACH is issued with a list provided by the town, which reduces fraud, check and ACH fraud.
Excellent.
And so that will better protect the town's interest proactively. And also as part of the discussions and negotiations, they improved some of the online data access functionality with statements and other information. So like I said, nothing changed. Certainly nothing is any different, but I thought it was important for the town to know. The town treasurer really took the lead, and the finance office staff, myself included, went through 3 or 4 months of work to make sure that we were doing best by the taxpayers on where our money was invested. So again, not much really to talk about, but just to make sure that you're aware that it's something we pay attention to, and we're better off because of it.
Very good. Final public comment. Oh, no, sorry. Select persons reports. Select person there.
Well, I had the privilege to the Conservation Committee. And the biggest thing about the conservation in the town lands, they finally got together and stuff with the town forester they hired and stuff. And went over goals and objectives and stuff and had a good talk and stuff. And this is no effect on the TA, but no thing, but Tim enjoys talking with the town administrator. So he'll be a good point of contact and help everything go smooth. So I'm not trying to boost the TA or anything, just state the facts and that's it. That's all I'm gonna say.
You called me a higher being earlier, now you're inflating me like that, boy, I'm like a
Well,
fez
he was
from
talking
man.
about, he was talking about Andy.
All right, moving on.
Who's the chair of the Conservation Commission?
Ken
Ken
Grossman.
Grossman,
Ken? Okay.
and he's doing a good job and stuff, but he has a place in Vermont. Sometimes he can't make it, but they delegate the authority and everything's running smoothly there.
He's still a resident of the town?
Yes,
Okay.
maybe for a little while.
On mine, I had only one meeting, and that was with the library. And some of the items to report is that during the summertime, they have the reading program, and Seacoast Bank donated $1,600 for that program to start for the summertime, so that will really work out well. Just a reminder that Books in Bloom is going to be between 10:30 and 11:30, that's the auction, on March 21st. So if anybody's got any money and needs to buy some flowers for the house, I would recommend everybody go there. Not only do you get the flowers, but you get a book to go with it. And then, because the chief's not here, I'll go ahead and say that the chief came to the meeting, and during the meeting, one of the strangest questions, but not a strange question, the opportune time came for active shooter drills. So they're interested in having the chief work with them, and also Rick work with them for what they want to do for active shooter drills, not only in the old building, but also if they will come around and update. The chief also talked about some of the other programs that they asked them to do, and some of them was a reading program, some of them was the juice box reading program or what have you. So all in all, I have to say that the police chief really did a bang-up job there when he was there. That's all I have right now.
Select person Hart.
So there has not been a recreation meeting since the February 17th report out.
Planning board meeting, basically, pretty much everything was an extension that people who were looking to, there was a one-year extension for a Route 125 Development LLC. There was a request for extension from the owners, Paul Herfgott, Nina Myrie, M-Y-H-R-E, I apologize for slandering her name, and Carol Ledoux, which is related to the Falzoni 55 lot open space, or commercial and residential space. There was a request by the applicant to adjust boundary lines for 43 commercial storage units that he requested an extension on that one, which is Albert Estes and Knowles Falls Realty LLC. And there was the only real business that we had tended to on that one was the boundary line adjustment for Waldron v. Haley Revocable Trust of 1998 in Allen Waldron, which was a 20-foot adjustment in the lot line. So nothing too major there. On a sidebar note, just something I wanted to share with folks to be mindful of, because I received a message late the other night, and it came in as a free message from my bank, and it said, for security, we've temporarily restricted your ATM/debit card. Please call, and it gives an 800 number to verify your account. clearly a fraud email. The irony was I was in my bank account when I received it. So I was aware about it. I have obviously notified my bank, but just to warn people to be careful of fraud and phishing scams because they are out there and they are prevalent. So, select person there.
I have no faith in all these stuff, and these warranties, and you'll call, IRS called me and stuff. And two, the Chinese and the Russians, they spend all day long just doing this fishing. And a lot of people get hooked.
Tuesday.
You are right, it's out there everywhere.
Final.
I received one also from, on the banking, I also received one for changing your password on, for the Atlantic, but it wasn't from Atlantic, I checked it out. And the other one I received was a donation to the police department. So those are the three that I received during the last month. Yeah, they're out there, they're looking for us.
Final public comment. Hearing none, non-public.
Personnel reputation.
So, motion to select person Hardikoff.
I'm hoping that our townspeople that actually watch these videos decide to,
Vote?
well, that too, it would be nice if they voted, but there's a lot of social media presence taking place that is sharing misinformation, and so I'm hoping, since the townspeople asked for transparency, and we've gone out of our way to ensure that all of the meetings are able to be viewed at any given time, and that you can certainly go back and review them instead of sitting through them. That potentially the people who are very interested in what's happening do not utilize social media in a way that skews the information, and instead potentially cut and paste pieces of the videos and put them out there so people can actually see accurate information. Thank you.
Motion to go into non-public.
Who's taking, oh, motion to go into,
Second,
for what reason?
personnel reputation.
Personnel.
Personal reputation.
Can
Okay.
you make that? I'll second it.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Already.
ARI?
Bailey,
Hardikoff, aye.
Snap by.
8 o'clock.
that's
I'm
not,
trying.
you know,
Keep us
that's
rolling.
not,